Hello everyone, welcome to the Union Pacific Railroad Geneva Subdivision in N-Scale. My name is Daryl Cruz, owner and builder of the layout, and your host for episode 29 of season 2020. This is part 3 of a 3-part series on Manifest Train MPRNP, a train from Proviso, Illinois, or I should say the Proviso Yard in the Chicago suburbs, to North Platte, Nebraska, with a stop here in Franklin Grove. Part 1 of the series showed the building of the layout, the building of the train. You may want to skip back to part 1 if you want to see the whole series. And then part 2 was traveling from Proviso to Franklin Grove on the main line of the Geneva subdivision, and then also some switching in Franklin Grove. And then part 3 is going to be the continuation of the switching in Franklin Grove, and then the final trip of this train from Franklin Grove on to North Platte. In part 2, we arrived at Franklin Grove, separated from the main part of the train with just the cars that we needed. Came here to Franklin Grove and did the switching already at Pitzer and Sons. Dropped off some cars and picked up some cars. And now we're going to be doing the more complicated operation of switching consolidated grain and barge, which you can see right there, the white building with a couple of trucks and some hopper cars. Since the turnout for this siding is an opposing turnout, we have to get the locomotives to the other side of the cars. So we're going to be doing a runaround. So as you can see, we've already uncoupled from the cars and we pulled forward to clear the control point here at milepost 100, and we're waiting for a signal to move to the other side of our cars. For safety reasons, you can see we turned on the headlights. And we're going to be taking the crossover here at milepost 100 to do the runaround at Franklin Grove. '5714. There's an AC 4400 by Cottle. That's the locomotive on the right. The locomotive on the left, which is the lead locomotive where the engineers are, that's a C44-9. That particular model is by Scale Trains. Since we're just doing switching operations, we have just the headlight on, not the ditch lights. And now we're heading over to the other side of the cars there. Alright, now that we're on the other side of our cars, we're going to take a crossover again to go from track 1 back to track 2. And then we'll be able to pull back towards our cars and be able to then do the switching at consolidated grain and barge. If you look way in the distance here in the upper right hand part of this screenshot, you can see the rest of our train, the main part of our train. That's just sitting there on the main line as we do switching operations with the front few cars that are at Franklin Grove. All right, now that we're on the other side of our cars, we can go ahead and couple to them. And we are now oriented correctly for switching the turnout at consolidated grain and barge. However, we are on track 2, and the turnout for consolidated grain and barge is on track 1. So we do need to take these cars and move them from track 2 to track 1. You're looking at Franklin Grove here. The grain elevator on the right is Pitzer & Sons. That's a scratch-built grain elevator that I originally built 30 years ago and kind of refurbished it recently for this place. I also just put in the roads and put in some gravel and weathered it a bit. When we perform this operation during op sessions, we try to save this particular train towards the end of the session when there aren't quite as many trains running, because in just a few minutes we are going to be occupying both track 1 and track 2. So our main cars are back by Global 3 on track 2. And then we're going to be moving with these cars here at Franklin Grove from track 2 to track 1. So this train will be occupying both tracks, and it really blocks pretty much any traffic going through Franklin Grove. We're going to go ahead and uncouple our cars here. Almost recoupled them there. The clicking sound you hear is my Digitrax DT602D throttle, which I like quite a bit. I've kind of transitioned from using a smartphone to going back to using a standard throttle. These are the two that I'm going to be dropping off here at Franklin Grove, but I will have to pick up some cars first before I drop these off. Brakeman's aligning the couplers there. And we'll go ahead and pull these out. We don't need all of them though. car that we're going to be picking up is the gray one here. The CN car is not going to be picked up, so we'll put it back with the two cars that we're dropping off from our train. We're uncoupled, and then we'll go ahead and put the CN car back, and then the two cars from our train that we're dropping off. Alright, the brakeman uncoupled the cars, and we'll go ahead and go back to our remaining cars and push them back to track 2. Alright, we're coupled back to the cars, and we'll go ahead and push them back to track 2. Alright, so we are officially off of track 1, which means that we are no longer completely blocking the main line. And the last thing we need to do now is do another runaround and get the locomotives to the other side of these cars again, to the front side of them, and then we'll back them up into our main body of cars backed by Global 3, and then we'll be set to go. I also recently did an update video on Franklin Grove that kind of shows how Franklin Grove all kind of came together with the grain elevator there and putting in roads and details and just how everything kind of came together. So you want to check that out. That was a couple weeks ago. It's a layout update on Franklin Grove. Alright, we're going to go ahead and uncouple our locomotives from the cars again, and we're going to do another run around, just an opposite of the previous run around, so that we can get back to the front end of these cars. The booth there and the sheds are the check-in and check-out points for Global 3, and then in the distance you can see the classification yards and loading and unloading yard for Global 3. Before we can do our runaround, we do have a train coming through. Looks like it's a manifest train. Alright, the crossover has been thrown, and we'll go ahead and come back this way and take the crossover to do a run around. Alright, we're back to track 2. And all we have to do now is put all the cars together and get ready to depart westbound towards North Platte. Like the brakeman has to align the couplers again. And now we're going to continue to back up with these cars and couple up to the main body of cars that are backed by Global 3. It looks like we have our train back together and ready to depart. As we have also a coal train going by at the same time. Once I couple the train all back together, I usually wait about 10 minutes to simulate the air brakes being aired up before the train departs. But for this video, we'll go ahead and just get going. This coal train is crossing to track 2 at milepost 100, so our train is not going to be able to go past milepost 100 until the coal train clears, so we're kind of just heading out quite slowly right now. Probably have to come to a stop at milepost 100 before we can continue. Here you can see the coal train crossing over. Alright, we're going to have to come to a stop here as we wait for the coal train to clear the block in front of us. And of course the dispatcher has to throw the turnouts. We're ready to go ahead and depart from Franklin Grove and continue our trip westward to North Platte. Just outside of Franklin Grove, there's a farm that I also just recently completed. So we're heading past the farm and going across the northern Illinois countryside, heading towards the crossing of the Mississippi River. So we're now at the Mississippi River, getting ready to cross from Illinois into Iowa. Looks like we're meeting a eastbound coal train on the bridge. Once across the Mississippi River, we head into Clinton, Iowa, and then on into the staging yards in North Platte. I hope you've enjoyed this video and hope you've had a chance to see all three of them and seeing the operations of Manifest Train MPRNP. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day, everyone.